Thank you, Kaylee. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the March 12th meeting of the Traffic Safety Committee. I'm just going to read a few notes here and then we'll get started. This open meeting of the Traffic Safety Committee is being conducted remotely pursuant to Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023, an act relative to extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency signed into law on March 29th, 2023. All members of the Traffic Safety Committee are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. The Act allows the Traffic Safety Committee to meet entirely remotely as long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda unless the chair notes otherwise. Members of the public who wish to view the live stream of this meeting may do so by going to Northborough Remote Meetings on YouTube via the link listed in the agenda. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting will feature public comment. So we'll check to make sure we can hear everyone. So members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Rachel Armstrong.
Here.
Kate Gerard.
Here.
Chris DeCantis.
Here.
And staff, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Scott Charpentier.
I'm present.
Brian Griffin.
Here.
And we have Lisa Maselli from the Select Board.
I'm here. You can't see me though.
Lisa's going to be off video, which is fine. So I guess we'll get started here. The first item on our agenda is the crosswalk alert system for 7 locations. And Scott, before you get in, one of the things I was doing beforehand, I'm going to share out my screen here, was I actually mapped these out. So it makes it a little bit easier for us to see what we're talking about here, because I know we were talking about a bunch of different locations. So can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 on here. I think I added one. I don't remember seeing. Is there one at Assabet Park across 135?
There is currently, yes.
There is. Okay, so I'll take that one off then. That's
It was the only one that did not blow over 1 February ago.
Right. So we're talking about 6. Is that correct? 1, 2, 3, 4. Yes.
The 7th one is at the intersection of Lincoln Street and West Main Street. I believe
That's
that
right.
crosswalk lies right at the state layout line. I'd have to determine via survey whether it's in the layout or in the right of way. But yes, at that location.
And then you're talking about coming across West Main Street?
No, it's across Lincoln Street, actually.
Across Lincoln Street, okay.
So the island there is state layout, but the single section of the roadway, the dual lane, is town. So I believe that's town property, but I'd have to look into it.
Okay. So the ones we're looking at here, so this one is crossing Lincoln Street at Oak Ave to the elementary school. Then we have the south side of Melican, the north side of Melican. I know that, Scott, you had mentioned that you were a little concerned with having too many signals in one area right here because of this one at Pleasant and Lincoln, right?
Correct.
And then we've got crossing Church Street to Pleasant. And let me just zoom out here real quick. And this one down here at Northgate and Chesterfield, right? Now, is that crossing Northgate?
That crosses Northgate, correct. There's a, you can see between the two private properties, just to the left of F, there's a little rectangle there. That is an open parcel of town land that students use to access Proctor School. It's like a little footpath, but it's paved.
Okay, got it. So those are the 7 that we're talking about here. Just I thought it would be easier for a visual representation so that we can all understand what we're looking at. So are there any questions? I saw the quote that came in. Now, is that for all 7?
That is for all 7, correct.
Okay. So about 250,000 for all 7.
Yes. yeah, I'm happy to go over the memorandum and the pricing a little bit if you'd like, Mr. Chairman.
Sure.
So the memorandum was provided to the committee in advance of the meeting. I did solicit a quote from one of the state bid list vendors for RFBs. They're approved by Mass DOT and they're on the state bid list. We have their product elsewhere in town. We actually purchased their product to replace a low bid product that we had blown over in February, last February, not this past one. So the quote we got was approximately $8,500 per crossing per pair. 7 of them results in about $60,000 for materials alone. Because there's substantive wheelchair ramp work to be done, and this would be a publicly bid project, I solicited pricing from civil engineering firms. The quote came in at $32,500 with extremely limited survey, no property line survey, just at the wheelchair ramp to determine how long the flares are. So when you have a wheelchair ramp, you need to have a maximum slope, a design slope of 7.5% in each direction. And sometimes the ramps are short, sometimes they're long, depending on the longitudinal slope of the roadway. On top of that, we added in the cost for the wheelchair ramps themselves, the flat work, they call it, the cement concrete, as well as the detectable warning strips. The unit price of $150 per square foot is based on the Mass DOT's average weighted bid prices for District 3. The traffic details was purely estimated based on what we expect the duration of the work to be at each location. And then there's a lump sum component for site prep and restoration. Site prep being demolition of whatever's there now, and then restoration typically is loam and seed along the back of the edges where we've impacted the adjacent grass surfaces. On that, we added in a 20% contingency. That's a common level contingency for a design that has not occurred yet. As you approach final design, that contingency tends to whittle down. You get near final design, you're at 15%. You get at final design, you're at 10%, and hopefully during construction, you're playing with 5% or under. So overall, the project cost came in at a little over $243,000. So the ask I would recommend would be a $250,000 ask for the 7 crossings.
Okay. Any thoughts from other members? Thank you, Scott, for doing all that work. Appreciate it.
Any sticker shock?
I don't think so. I think that's about what I was expecting per unit. Again, I don't know if we want to do all 7 units, if we want to drop it down to 4. I know it's one of those things that once they start coming out and doing it, if you break it up, it tends to be more expensive, not less. But go ahead, Rachel. Oh, I can't hear you, Rachel. I don't know if you're on. I don't see you're on mute. Can anyone else hear Rachel?
No.
I cannot.
I'm gonna my headphones.
Now we got you.
Something's
Now I got
happening.
you. That's better.
Oh, sorry.
Oh.
Go on and go on. I'll figure it out.
Okay,
We
well,
can hear you now.
now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead, Lisa, and then we'll come back to Rachel.
Okay, hi, this is great. If you can send that in contingent, the quotes and stuff that you sent to the rest of the group, I didn't see that to be able to have with this, but this is great, Bill, if you can put that together with what Scott had done. And I have a question on Northgate. Is there actually sidewalks that's going to be on? I don't know if there's a sidewalk on
Chesterfield?
Chesterfield or across the street.
There is a sidewalk across the street and there's a walkway between the two parcels.
Okay,
Regarding a sidewalk on Chesterfield, I'm not sure if it's on that side or the other. I'm pretty confident there is a sidewalk there. I can try to do the street view while we're discussing it.
Okay.
Lisa, I had sent out the memorandum and the agenda. I thought you had received those. I did not send out the detailed quotes though.
yeah, I have the agenda.
Yeah, we got the detailed quotes, I think, from Robert.
Okay. All right. I'll make sure you get those, Lisa. I'm sorry if they weren't sent to you.
Okay, and then this is great with what Bill's done too, because it shows, shows really what we're looking at. So thanks for doing all that. And as I say, you can check with what's happening at the Northgate piece.
It doesn't look like there's a sidewalk on Chesterfield.
Yeah, I don't think there is.
There's a I think Chief, there's a crossing guard there, right? They do have a crossing guard there, yeah.
Yes, they do.
Okay. Is that it, Lisa?
Yeah, that's it.
Okay. Rachel,
Oh.
Can you hear me now?
yes.
Okay, I apologize. If you hear dogs in the background, I apologize. My headphones are not working. So my question was, are all 7 sites not wheelchair compliant right now?
Correct. You are correct. They are not.
Okay. Okay, that was it. Thank you. Thank you, Scott. Thanks for all this work.
You're welcome.
So I guess the only question then is about these two right here. Right, so you've got one crossing here just before Lincoln on Pleasant, and then you've got another crossing here just before the north driveway at Milliken. What is everyone's thoughts about both of these, or just keeping the Milliken one and not doing the Pleasant Street? I mean, I think we should probably do both, but I know, Scott, I understand you're concerned about having too many signals in one area.
Yeah, they can get I don't want to call it sign clutter. There's not really that, but just flashing light clutter, I guess, is for another term.
Right.
Scott, is there an issue with the one on, I'm just thinking about other locations we can eliminate. The one on Route 20 in West Main, do we have control over that if it's a state highway? And isn't there a pedestrian crossing there now?
There's a crosswalk there now. There are no pedestrian protective measures. That came in as a citizen request who someone had watched the meeting and said, oh, you're doing all these on Lincoln Street. Can we add that one? I don't believe there's a lot of school children related pedestrian traffic there. It's pretty off the beaten path. My guess is that the kids would access the Rocky's Plaza and Times Square down Pine Haven rather than going all the way down Lincoln and then walking that way. I may be mistaken. I don't know the pedestrian routes the kids take, but when I was a kid, I took the quickest way to get there, which would be Pine Haven. So if the one was to be eliminated easily, that would likely be the first that I would recommend.
Okay, thank you.
Lisa, I just sent you the information.
Thanks, Scott.
Kate,
So I know last meeting, I had some concerns as far as the Pleasant Street crosswalk sign as well, because I thought it was too close to that exit of Lincoln, like
Right.
just get too busy. But now that I'm looking at this map, I would have to agree with you, Bill, that I think both would be a good idea, because I worry that on letter C, the lights would be flashing and then somebody rounds the corner and they think that they're through it, but everyone who's going in that direction is going to cross over Pleasant there because there's no sidewalk on the side closer to Lincoln Street.
right, there's no sidewalk on the southern side of Pleasant here. The only sidewalk is on the north.
We can adjust the duration of light activation. So, the first one at Milliken going across Lincoln could be a a shorter duration if there seemed to be an overlap in the timing. We can adjust the timing.
Okay. Chief,
Yeah, I was actually, no, answer my question, Scott, if that could be adjusted. That's typically, where you have point C and point D on the map. I mean, obviously that is when schools released a mob scene. So it's going to be a quick activation of the button on light C right over to light D. So yeah, it'll be just interesting to see how it syncs, right? But I didn't know if that was a possibility.
yeah, and I mean, I guess the other question is that do we look to have these as constants before the school starts? 15 minutes before the school, do they just come on? I don't know if that's possible, if that makes any sense, or if that's, if that does create too many lights, I guess.
I think that might be a situation where it becomes easier for someone to ignore, where it won't catch their eye,
Right.
if someone's actually there, and if someone's kind of, sometimes you can get lost behind if there's a utility pole or whatever. I'm just afraid that if you have them constant flashing, it makes it a lot easier to just mindlessly go through.
Yep. No, you're right. That's what I get for brainstorming.
No, it's a valid point. I mean, everything's on the table here because it's a very tricky area with a lot of crossings.
Yeah.
Is there a crossing? I think there's a crossing right at Lincoln and Pleasant across Lincoln as well.
There's both, yeah.
Yeah, which if the lights were pushed to that intersection, they could be preemptive. So you hit one and both of them activate. But I believe the current location would be too far to warrant that.
Right.
And I don't think children would walk to the intersection and then cross two ways. I think what you have laid out, Bill, is where the students would be walking.
Or, I mean, the other question is, do we move the crosswalk to this side? And then that eliminates the need for this one. Right? Because now they're coming down the correct side of Lincoln. They don't need to cross Lincoln.
Chris, you have your GIS up, right?
I have the maps open.
All right.
I just have Google Map. I mean, you would have to install additional sidewalk down the front of what is it? Looks like 118 Pleasant.
Yeah,
So that's driveway work, sidewalk work, curb work, drainage work. Maybe
that property owner parks on where the sidewalk would be, and often where we plow, and they park all over there. So I think that's probably the best layout.
Okay, Lisa.
I have to agree. I think that that Pleasant Street, you got a lot of traffic on Pleasant Street. And when I've gone down there, and there are a lot of people who do walk, but it's relatively narrow. So I do think that's kind of an important one to put there. Even though it's close, I would, I just think that's kind of yeah. I mean, if you had to give one up, I'd probably give the Lincoln Street section there up if you had to. But the problem is too, people walk at different speeds and kids walk at different speeds. So as much as it looks close to us here on the map, it might not be as close in walking distance. But
No, and pretty much, by the time this light turns off, they'll be getting to this one to turn it on. So
right. Yeah. Okay, that's my 2 cents.
Yep. So I think we've talked through C and D. How does everyone feel about G? Going across Lincoln? Is that something we need a little bit more discussion on?
I think I'd like to see the crosswalk that's there now, Scott. What's the distance approximately from West Main Street? Do you know? Is it just beyond that little island?
It's just beyond that island. It doesn't bisect that island, I don't think. Chris, do you see that?
Yeah, it's like 80 feet back from the intersection.
So it's likely on town road. I don't believe that would be state highway. They're generally maybe 120-foot right away, which would be a 60 each side.
Right.
Yep.
So if we have the kids from the Crestwood Drive neighborhood, and I know back when I was a kid, they used to walk. My guess is, who knows, could be a bus at this point, but so if they're walking from Crestwood over to Lincoln, they're gonna hit the yellow flashers right on Route 20. That'll get them safely across there, and then I guess the goal would be to put the flashers there. I can understand the request. I think I need to kind of look at it a little bit more, to be honest with you, just to see how it would look and flow and see what the pedestrian traffic is like there.
We do get a lot of inquiries from the citizens regarding pedestrian and vehicular safety exiting Crestwood with the offset intersection. I get a request at least once a year. Why isn't there an actual traffic light there as opposed to a pedestrian activated?
And that's because it's the state road, not ours to do with as we please.
Correct.
Correct.
Unfortunately, but
Yeah.
it is obviously a scene of many accidents, and they're often significant ones too.
Right.
Yeah, that was my concern, that it is an intersection that a lot of residents are concerned about from a vehicle standpoint. I don't want to not encourage walking, but I sort of feel like if it's already a vulnerable area, we might not want to encourage, middle school students or people crossing there until we figured out the other issues.
Well, there's already a crosswalk here now, right? All we're looking to do is put a light on that crosswalk.
Okay, yeah, I hear you.
The connectivity between Lincoln Street, pedestrian connectivity between Lincoln Street down Pine Haven to West Main Street over by Rockies and Times Square and Rosalima, that is on the complete streets sidewalk prioritization plan. It's quite a ways down the plan because it's an incredibly challenging project to implement. Pine Haven Drive is a narrow road, tight utilities, no closed drainage. It's a long way down the road for implementation, but it was identified by the reason I say it was identified by the community as a priority for pedestrian improvements.
Right. And then you're probably going to want some type of crossing signal here, right? If they're going from Pine Haven across to this plaza.
Mass DOT would probably push you down to where the West Main and Southwest Cutoff branch off. I'm guessing that's what Mass DOT would do, is just say,
Right.
go there, mid block lights like that they don't find very safe.
Yep. Chief, do you have another comment, or you still had your hand up? I just want to make sure.
I've never used the hand feature before, so I'm just behaving. But I forgot to put my hand down.
Chris.
Not to get sidetracked, but has there been any discussion with the state about that intersection on Route 20 with Lincoln, like a road safety audit or anything?
Yes.
Well, to be honest, I was going to sort of bring that up and say, maybe that needs to be an agenda item for our next meeting.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah, that sounds good.
And then, we'll talk about literally like writing a letter to the state, recommending that, CCing the select board, recommending traffic lights there.
That's been brought up to the state multiple occasions. The narrative between the inquiry and the response is on our traffic safety website under the I think it's FAQ crosswalks or sidewalks or something to that effect. But it is on there, and every time somebody reaches out, we ask DOT, and I don't know if they cut and paste or what they do, but their response has not been what we were looking for.
Yeah.
I guess not even to initiate like a road safety audit to get the ball rolling, because it's a long process. It's not as simple as throwing a traffic light in, unfortunately.
Right.
It's going to go through a whole process of safety checks, traffic counts, accident history, intersection control evaluation, and a whole bunch of different things. So it's definitely a process, and I just don't know if that's something we could do, and I guess if
Didn't they
it
do
sounds like
that?
it's been going.
Hasn't that been done? And they said no? Or was
Well,
that?
yeah, yes, yes, Kate, you're correct. We've asked them, Mass DOT, repeatedly, and they indicated that the crash history, geometry, does not warrant any improvements or a design of improvement, consideration for improvement. So a road safety auditor, hazardous intersection analysis. So we'll ask again as soon as somebody, emails me again.
I'll email
Well,
you.
like I said, I think, Scott, let's add that onto the agenda for the next meeting.
Certainly.
And then, maybe we'll pull together the crash information that Chief Griffin has for that meeting. So, we can add that into our request. So for now, does everyone feel comfortable making a recommendation, voting on a recommendation for these 7? And then we can at least present that. Maybe, I know it's too late for April town meeting, but maybe we can present this for October town meeting. What does everyone think?
Yeah.
Okay, well, then I'm going to ask for a motion to recommend the 7 identified sites to the select board to be placed into the warrant for October of 2024. Is there anyone who wants to make that motion?
Oh,
I'll make the motion. I don't want to have to repeat everything.
Okay. Is there a second?
second,
Okay, roll call vote. Rachel,
I,
Chris,
Aye.
Kate,
Aye.
and I'm an I as well. So we'll make that 4 with 1 absent. And we'll write that up and get that sent to the select board. It's really up to them to do it. We're just making a recommendation. So Scott, I'll take a snapshot of this map and then you can add in your quote.
Fantastic.
Okay. The other item you had on here was the Bartlett Street Safety Zone.
Yes. So the topic came up at the town administrator's office regarding the timing for the afternoon timing for the traffic for the safety zone, speed safety zone on Bartlett Street in and around Algonquin Regional High School. When the select board enacted the safety zone a few years ago, the afternoon hours were recommended to be 90 minutes in and around dismissal time. The select board discussed it. They determined that it would be best to capture some of the afternoon activities at the high school as well. The school district believed that 6 p.m. was probably the most appropriate time if we were going to extend it beyond dismissal. The select board discussed it at length, and the determination was the safety zone would extend till 9 p.m. I think residents along Bartlett Street and the adjoining neighborhoods have come to realize that maybe 9 p.m. or 8:45 is a little late for a 20 mile an hour zone through that segment. So I did get an email from the superintendent indicating 6 p.m. Is still where they believe the afternoon, the p.m. time should end. So again, that was my original recommendation. If they want to capture after school events, 6 p.m. is probably an appropriate time. Plus, it captures the heat of rush hour.
Right. Okay. Rachel.
So Scott, did someone complain about the safety zone being 2 to 9?
Somebody reached out to the town administrator's office and asked why it's so late. And I responded to the town administrator with, the meeting that the select board had, the selectmen had at that time, indicating at this meeting, this was the discussion, and it centered around after school activities. And a lot of it was, well, we'll capture the heat of the sports teams leaving. And then the discussion went down the road of band practice, other more inside after school events. And the result was 9 p.m. And actually the select board at that time stated that they would reevaluate it after a year. I don't believe that reevaluation ever occurred. The select board changed over after a few elections, and the topic has come up again.
Okay, because that when it was originally set those hours, you're right, the bulk of the traffic is after school to 6 p.m. when practices are over. But because there's so much activity in the evenings, if there's a football game at night, if there's an assembly, if there's any sort of, meeting, a parents meeting, I think that's why it was extended. It's also sort of when in the winter roads can get icy, as it gets later, if kids are leaving later for, band rehearsal or play rehearsal. Is there a way to extend it if we know that there's a back to school night, or if there's, a play or something that's going to have a lot of activity after 6 p.m.?
No, the controls would allow it. We just don't have the staff or resources to, Public Works doesn't. If the school had control over it, that may be a viable option. They know their schedules, but if you think about logistically, I can't be, I'm not going to monitor when band practices and extend, that just.
No, I totally get it.
feasible.
And I understand that neighbors, if it's on your property, like in the lights there, it's bright. And again, as we said in our last meeting, sometimes they're just ignored when it's on for so many hours. But that was the initial concern, was that there is still on many nights of the week a lot of activity, into the evening. If there are games or and it is also, when roads might be getting icy, but that was the initial reason for, as you said. So
And
I'll go with what everyone thinks, but
so you're aware, these are not remote modified. I mean, in order to modify them, you go out there with a ladder and tools, and you go into the back of it and you change the times. So when the time,
I'm not, I'm not gonna harp on it too much, but there is a lot of activity at the high school after 6. So, but if the school isn't, concerned, then, I'll back down.
Can we meet in the middle and push it to 7?
Yeah, I think I would be concerned, and Chief, I'd let you chime in on this, but that might be an enforcement issue as well, correct?
Yeah, I was actually just going to say that. I think if we need to keep something consistent, right? We can't go back and forth, just so our officers kind of, they need to know. And going back and forth would be just a little difficult to manage that.
Lisa?
I think Rachel, of course, is in the neighborhood, so she would probably have a much better, a closer eye on what's going on down there. And I think I agree with the chief. I'd just leave it alone. Did you have a lot of complaints about it, Scott, or why was that decided to shorten it?
there was one inquiry to the town administrator's office, and I provided the background on how the decision was made. And there was a bit of an email, I don't want to say volley, but there was a couple of emails that went back and forth. And the statement was made, this should go before the Traffic Safety Committee to get their opinion. And went to the school district, and the superintendent responded, as I indicated, 6 p.m. But again, it wasn't an outpouring of citizen concern with the hours. It was, we treat every citizen, report the same. Somebody, one person asked about the crosswalk having lights at Lincoln and West Main Street, and we're here discussing it. So it wasn't an onslaught of concern.
Okay. All right, well, I'd err in the, the light of caution and keep it, it's only 3 hours, so it's not like it's a big deal, right? Not a great expense or problem keeping it until 9. Correct?
Is that something that you put on the agenda because you're gonna want us to vote on it? Whether we would recommend changing it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, Chris, were you going to say something, or?
I was just thinking, is it something that we look into, say it is 6 p.m. per the superintendent and just giving it a little bit of a buffer? Is that worth it? Just some food for thought for everyone out there.
Yeah, I mean, I'm concerned that, well, not concerned, but my thought is that the school is saying 6 o'clock, right? So even the school is acknowledging that 9 o'clock is too late. It's funny, Chris, I think you said it sort of offhand, but I'm wondering if 7 o'clock is a better option, right? It still drops it by 2 hours. And then part of the recommendation is that, the select board or somebody looks at it again in a year, which they may not again, but.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it was just a thought, and Chief, I don't know if you want to chime in, and I know you mentioned enforcement issues, but just a thought.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be fine with, honestly, just as long as it's consistent. Let's set a time and let's leave it at that. And honestly, the time it really, it doesn't really matter to me. We just need to have a set time.
But I'm just reviewing my emails, and the school department indicated 6:20 p.m. odd number, not 6 p.m. 6:20.
So that might even push more towards 7.
I don't know why it's 6:20. That's a kind of a weird thing. Maybe something that day ended at 6:20 and there's a lot of kids leaving.
Yeah. Kate.
So what are the times at the other schools?
The school zones are typically 90 minutes around the arrival and dismissal. So 30 minutes before, 60 minutes afterwards is typical. Some are shorter. This is a safety zone, so it's not actually a school zone. You can't have a school zone at a high school in Massachusetts without extenuating circumstances. So, for example, if you've been out to Tantascwa, a lot of their fields are across 148. So the students are going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. The kids parking are over there as well. That's an extenuating circumstance. That's not the case here.
So that's why it's different than.
Yeah.
Because I know there's activities at all of the schools at night, different practices and different things, not just the high school. But I'm wondering if maybe a lot of the practices end at 6 and that's why they wanted it to be 6:20 to kind of give the parking lot a chance to clear out. But I don't know. I personally think that it's always a good idea to just go with the school's recommendation. But
Chris.
Was there a reason why 9 o'clock was picked originally?
It was sort of what Rachel indicated, band practice, rehearsals for, arts and the like. So yeah, it was trying to be more inclusive of all activities at the school and not just, football, basketball. But basketball happens at night as well. So a lot of the indoor sports go a little later.
And the football games are on Friday nights. The other difference between the high school and the other schools is the drivers. They're new drivers. So, the generally with the middle schools and the elementary schools, it's the parents picking them up, where here it might be kids. So again, I am an alarmist, I will admit that, but that was the concern too.
That's fine. We want all
Yeah.
views, right?
That totally makes sense. I mean, it's one of those situations is do you plan for the average or do you plan for the worst case scenario? And like you said, a
Right.
lot of new drivers, that does make it tough.
So I'm just curious to get sort of a straw poll. What does everyone think about 7 o'clock? If the school's asking for 6:20, that gives them an extra 40 minutes. I know it
think
doesn't cover the
makes more
football
sense than
game.
6.
It doesn't cover the football games. It doesn't cover like the basketball games that are late at night, right? The indoor sports and stuff.
Chief, do you guys have detail at the football games when they end?
We do, yeah.
You do.
Crowd control only, to be honest. We don't get involved with traffic, letting people out or anything like that. It's just making sure the kids get out of the stadium and there's no issues.
Okay, all right.
What do you think, Rachel?
I mean, I would be happier with 8, but we're picking hairs, whatever the saying is. I don't want to argue over details, but I would be happier with keeping it a little bit later. 7 to me isn't as much of a difference.
How about 7:30?
7:30 is fine. That's perfect.
And then, like I said, we asked that it does get reevaluated next year, right? So we can look at, any increase in, crashes or anything else like that in the area, and we can put it back up to 9.
That the 7:30 is fine. That works.
Okay. So let's see if I can get this right here. Do I have a motion to amend the Bartlett Street Safety Zone hours of operation from its current of 2 p.m. to 9 p.m. to a new schedule of 2 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. with a recommendation to reevaluate after 1 year?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay. Roll call vote. Rachel? Kate?
Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
And I'm an aye.
Thank you.
I did it for you, Rachel.
Okay. So next on the agenda is peer community survey discussion.
I haven't seen any other results come in. I think we've sort of concluded that process. Maybe if you agree, Mr. Chairman, I can try to summarize or tabulate the results. I believe you gave that a shot before, but I can re-engage in that process and have something ready for the next meeting.
Yeah, I think Rachel actually had something. But yeah, we can have that ready for the next meeting and then bring something up for that, so we can get some final tabulations. I know there were a couple, I don't know if there was anyone else, there were a couple towns that I had contacted that they were actually interested in seeing our results. So we could probably share some of those results as well once that's done. And so the no parking zone on Stirrup Brook Lane and Jenkins Drive. Okay, Chief.
So I've been doing a little research and nobody can really remember who put the signs up and where it can be enforced. There's nowhere in our bylaws. I talked to past chiefs and they can't remember it. They remember the issues with the construction of the school and the kids parking on Hemlock. And doing some research, we wrote 3 parking tickets in the last 20 years on Hemlock Drive. So a ticket was written. I'm not really sure how or under what violation. Again, we don't have that to enforce on Hemlock, even though there's signs there. Now, I'm not asking that we take them down, Rachel, because they're good. I did a little research as to, towns and cities, obviously, that do have residential parking requirements. And, obviously, mostly they're cities. A lot of them are related to congestion, limited parking, triple deckers, city streets. Sometimes you have the towns that are beachside communities where you have people that are trying to avoid paying the parking for the beach. And so therefore, they have various regulations set up with residents only parking. I think if we were if the board decided that this was a good idea, it has to go through a bylaw and present it to the select board. I think it's more than just throwing up some signs, that we have to give a lot of thought. I talked to Scott about this a little bit. His guys can throw up signs, no problem, but it's the enforcement side of things that we really have to consider a little bit. We're going to have to, if we were to do it, we'd have to have some sort of permit system, whether it be a sticker on a car. I know I spoke last meeting, and I'm like, I can tell you my officers, they're not going to, ticket a visitor. So I brought it up to my officers. I said, what do you guys, what do you think about this? And they're like, well, what if one neighbor didn't like another neighbor and that neighbor was having a barbecue? And they call us and say, well, those people don't live there. And they shouldn't be parked there. It's a good point. It's a good point. So in some towns that do have residential parking regulations, they do have visitor passes. So do we want to, that again, it would be a lot of work, right? I mean, permitting everyone. And so I think it needs to be, if this group, thinks it's a good idea, it really needs to be vetted out quite a bit. And, does the neighborhood want it? I know some people do, but would everyone want it? So it can be done. It's just going to take it would take a little bit of work, a lot of work, I think, to get it done right. And, we know the issues up there. We know the rogue trucks. When we talked about that situation at the last meeting, clearly just I would not want that in my neighborhood, that truck, and I get it. I would encourage, for it to happen again, I tell the neighbors, call us and we'll take care of it, and like we do. But how do we enforce no trucks up there? We've thought about residents only, and yeah, that would help. Then one of my officers said, well, what about the people who are fishing on Bartlett Pond? They used to park on Bartlett Street, but that's not allowed anymore. So they park their one car on Stirrup Brook, a public way, and cross the street. Now they wouldn't be able to park there. So we're trying to develop this potential plan just to really deal with the one major issue, which is a truck parking there. Really, that's what it's kind of all comes down to. Cars don't seem to be an issue if they're parked there. So I don't really know. I'm kind of scratching my head on this one. But we could probably throw a sign up there and just, Scott could throw a sign up like we did on Hemlock, and we just, it's kind of a dummy sign, I guess, where there's really no enforcement side of it. Or we think about doing a residence only. Again, it's just going to take, who's going to permit the cars? Is that going to be us? Is it going to be the clerk's office? It just needs to really be vetted out before we go ahead and just do it.
One, before you move on to members, Mr.
Yep.
Chairman. One thing to be aware, as soon as we implement, or as soon as the town meeting adopts bylaws and then the select board goes forward with implementing what's, good for the goose is good for the gander. So while this neighborhood has a problem with tractor trailers, this could end up in a lot of neighborhoods. A lot of people park on the side of the road to pick up their kids across the street from Lincoln Street Elementary School. Is that going to be a residential? There's repercussions that tend to go farther than the problem or the issue that started the conversation. So.
Yep. No, I agree. It's funny because at my real job, I'm actually dealing with that exact situation right now. So I get it. Go ahead, Rachel.
So we had talked about potentially, instead of residents only, residential parking. So it's much broader and you don't have to necessarily live in the neighborhood, as long as you're not a commercial vehicle that isn't doing business in the area, like an oil truck or a landscape vehicle. You can't park there. It just gives the police more teeth to enforce no trucks. If we say residential, yet someone can fish, someone can have a barbecue, someone can park if they're picking up their kids. So if it's residential, it's just a little broader. Does that change things instead of residents only?
Maybe. Never.
To be honest, I'd still be a little concerned if you get somebody with like a pickup truck with a commercial plate on it, right? So then you're still in the issue that the chief was explaining, where if the neighbor doesn't like the neighbor and somebody's parked their truck, their work truck on, for a barbecue at somebody's house, you could still get yourself in trouble. To be honest, I know I brought this up before, and it was thought of as not a good idea, but I'm going to bring it up again. I think a heavy commercial vehicle exclusion. There should be no heavy vehicles on these streets. We don't need to get an account. There should be none. They're dead end streets, right? So we put a heavy vehicle exclusion on it instead of a no parking. Now there are no heavy vehicles allowed on the street. Doesn't matter if they're parking or not. So that's my 2 cents. I know, Brian isn't here, so I don't want to, he was the one who was really against that. But, I think we really need to think about that as an option.
Does it,
Go ahead.
when it's on a dead end road like that, does it require a traffic study and everything that all of the other HCVE requests require if it's a road like that? Or, I kind of agree, it's such a small road for limited resources, for the limited amount of those requests we get.
It does, yes, it requires it. Yes, the same process, same thing as we did on Bartlett Street, or we talked about it on Summer Street. It's the same exact process, without a doubt. And I don't know if it would meet the thresholds, really.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think it would meet the thresholds, and yeah, I think it's a small road to use our limited, traffic counts on that. But that's it. Thank you.
I 100% agree. The tractor trailer has no business on my residential street, your residential street. I mean, there's no reason to come here unless you're dropping off all my furniture for renovation or something. Otherwise, you don't belong here. But we're limited.
We have a truck exclusion on our street and they still go by. What are you gonna do?
Oh, I've got a truck exclusion on one side of my street and a 6-ton limit bridge on the other side. And I can tell you there are 3 or 4 that go by my house every day. So
Just to follow up, Bill,
Yep.
not to move on from this, but just, if there's residents that are listening, that are in that neighborhood, I just wanted, if it's okay through the chair, just to talk about that memo that I sent out to the business owners.
That's what my question was. Yeah.
So I it was kind of, in our last meeting, I talked about, we talked about bringing a cake or flowers to Amazon and introduce ourselves. And I'll get to that in a moment. But I said, why not just try the old fashioned pen to paper and write a note? So, the board here, saw that, but just for anyone who might be listening, I wrote a letter to businesses along Bartlett Street, Lyman Street, Talbot Road, and Railroad Drive. I think it was upwards of 15 or 16 businesses, basically introducing myself and welcoming them to the town. And then I kind of just asked for their support in sharing, some of our concerns in that area, specifically tractor trailer traffic, and just ask that they share this letter with their drivers, their employees who travel there in their cars, and just to be mindful of some of the regulations we do have set up on Bartlett Street, Maple Street, Bridge Road, Lyman Street, and put it on a bulletin board. That may end up in the trash. It went out today, actually, in the mail. If it does, it does, but it's worth a shot. And as far as Amazon goes, the town administrator and I, we did connect with them. We will have a meeting with some town staff at the end of March. I think it's March 26th, where we will be going back up there. Both he and I will introduce ourselves, and I will for certain carry. I will have a lot of questions for them, but also express all these concerns that we've been dealing with for a few years, and just to see their day-to-day operations, and what's the possibility of allowing more trucks onto their property prior to their pickup or delivery. So we're trying, and I asked them, I also referenced, I believe, Stirrup Brook, just to be neighborly. Would you want a tractor trailer truck on your street? You probably wouldn't. So again, for what it's worth, we're trying, and we'll see what that gets us.
To piggyback on that, Chief, and thank you for reminding me, the Brigham Street concern that was raised a few meetings ago, somebody mentioned specifically Harvey's trucks, and I did reach out to Harvey's representative and let them know that there's no reason to be on that road if you're not picking up, or it's not a cut through. Just get up to Route 20, and the representative did indicate that she would reach out to the dispatcher and let them know that that's not your route. Stay on the state numbered routes. It's safer and more accommodating.
Thank you.
Thank you. I
Yeah,
appreciate that from both of you. Thank you.
Yeah, that's great, Chief. Thank you so much for that. And yeah, I mean, hopefully we can deal with this, by talking directly to them and not putting up signage or using our truck exclusions on, a residential road like that. That would be great. So thank you.
It's good that we've re-engaged. I mean, we went through transitions at Town Hall, obviously in the town administrator's office, but Amazon has had an open line of communication with us all along. They haven't bucked back on meetings, discussions, protocols. I know that the select board chair has asked specifically for flaggers on busy days, whether it's Prime Day or what have you. So they have been receptive of our requests, and I'm sure that'll continue with the new chief.
I have a question. I don't know, Bill, if you would know the answer to this. The ZBA, when FedEx was asking to expand, they were able to get FedEx to agree to discuss putting a forced turn lane at that shared driveway. So trucks had to go right when they left and enter from the east.
Right.
Do you know what the status is of that?
So they are still having that conversation. I think I mentioned this in the prior meeting. FedEx doesn't own that property.
Right.
They lease it. And so it's actually up to the owner. So FedEx can't say one way or the other whether it can be done or not. It's up to the owner. So technically the ZBA can't force them to do that either, because again, it's the owner, so they can't make it a condition of the approval. They could if FedEx owned the property, but because FedEx leases the property, they can't force that as.
A lot of what this meeting, even the safety zone and the things that we've been talking about have been brought about because of that area. And if we can physically force, then you don't have to get police down there, or the zoning officer down there, so some way to physically, force the drivers to go a certain way would obviously be great.
Yeah, I mean, the problem is that even if you force them to take a right out of there, they just go down to Cedar Hill and make a U-turn and come back up the hill. They've seen them doing that, right? So there's nothing you can do, They tried putting up planters, they just took down the planters. You know, like I said, this has been ongoing for a little while, so unfortunately.
No, I know. Okay, thank you.
Yep. Okay, so I guess we'll leave that. So the no parking zone, I just want to make sure I understand where we're leaving that. Chief, you're going to look up not a resident parking, but something to the effect of, non-commercial vehicle parking.
Yep, I'll look into that.
Okay, thank you.
They might be out there. I specifically was looking at residents only, so I'll take a look.
Okay. As far as the ongoing items are concerned, I don't know if there's any update on any of those. Chief, I know I was I happened to be watching the select board meeting last night. I didn't see your 2 additional officers. Is that coming up in April, or are you going to hold off till October for that?
So thanks for bringing that up. So the memo went out last month. I went in front of the Appropriations Committee a couple of weeks ago, I think 2 weeks ago. I pushed for 1. I wanted 2, but I think it was I thought long and hard. I also have asked for a second lieutenant to better help our overall structure and command staff, and that's a big need of mine and a real big want of mine where we really need some help. So I, being the new guy, I wanted to be careful a little bit, so treading the water lightly. And so I asked basically for that 1 additional, this year, 1 additional patrol officer. Originally, I started with 2. I went to the committee asking for 1. That will certainly help things. It's not exactly where I want to be, but I also told them that I would probably be back next year asking for that additional 1, as also with the second lieutenant again. So this year I did ask for 1 additional officer and 1 promotion to a lieutenant, and I plan to hopefully see how things go. If we get it, which I think hopefully we will, that's going to help our overall staffing, some of the staffing issues that we have, especially bringing our minimum staffing up a little bit. Even though it's just 1 person, 1 is better than 0. And if we can slowly climb the mountain a little bit to get to a number where I think would be good, we can do a lot more. So I'm hoping that things go as I hope they do, and it gets approved at town meeting. So we would have 1 additional officer, which would give us 24 sworn full-time officers. And again, that additional lieutenant, which would help our basically right now we only have 1 lieutenant. Currently we have 0 because I was the lieutenant. I got promoted. We have a promotional process next week. So we have 3 sergeants going for 1 position. That 1 position, the position I used to have, is more or less an administrative position. My envision, it would be we bring up a second lieutenant where we have an operations lieutenant and an administrative lieutenant and a bunch of responsibilities under each. The operations lieutenant would oversee, most likely oversee our traffic program in general. Currently, it's a sergeant doing it. So it's just going to be more efficient having 2 lieutenants. And there is just a lot of things going on right now in our industry between certifications, new whole certifications. The state's requiring that every police officer be certified now. under police reform, and our accreditation is a job in and of itself. So I'm hoping that the town it gets to town meeting and that we at least get that those two positions. And then next year I'll be back. Sorry
Okay.
for the long-winded answer to your question, Bill.
Nope, that's perfect. Scott, I saw you put up your hand.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just want to let the chief know, last night, Jason Little, our finance director, did do a budget presentation to the select board, and the additional patrolman, as well as the reclass for sergeant to lieutenant, was part of the budget presented at the select board. So that was endorsed, I guess, by the appropriations.
Good. Okay, great. Oh, we have the crosswalk with alert system on Hudson at Silas, right? Are we gonna, I think we're gonna hold off on that for right now, right?
Yeah,
Until we can get some more signs in that area.
Yeah, we installed the approach, the speed limit approach signs on each direction at that location. You know, I'll reiterate my commentary from the prior meeting. Mid-block crosswalks are extremely dangerous. This is not serving a large neighborhood. This is not like Crestwood at Northgate, where there's a specific destination and a very large demographic using the crosswalk. But we did install the signs that we committed to. So hopefully that helps remind people to slow down on the straightaway.
Okay.
Is the speed limit 35 there? If I recall correctly, on
That is correct, Chris. Yes, 35.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I've definitely been a little more, noticed a little more coming over that hill from coming up Hudson Street towards 20. And it's definitely that street comes quick at you when right when you get over that hill. So it would definitely be a little bit of concern. You got to make sure you get that driver's attention. Otherwise, it's a big problem.
Yep.
Okay. I think that's, unless anyone has anything else, I will open it up to public comment. If there's anyone, I don't see any attendees, so I guess I'm not going to worry about that. We'll get there eventually. We're a new committee, so give us a couple of years. We'll make enough enemies that they'll want to show up. So let's see, approval of the February 13th minutes. Did everyone have a chance to read through the minutes?
They were wonderful.
Oh yeah, that's right. I need to make our statement. So thank you for Scott for reminding me.
They help with insomnia, don't they?
We've been asked by the powers that be that we start migrating clerks to not taking minutes during meetings and have the town staff take that over. So Rachel, I don't think it'll be over the next couple of meetings, but probably I would say within probably May, June timeframe, you'll probably not have to worry about taking minute meetings anymore.
Okay, I'll start planning my vacation now.
So do I have a motion to approve the February 13th, 2024 minutes?
I'll make the motion to approve those minutes from February 13th, 2024.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, roll call vote. Kate?
Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
Rachel?
Aye.
And I'm an aye. So next meeting is actually April 9th.
April 9th.
6:30. So keep in mind, Scott, I don't know if we need to start preparing or not, but I know they have the new boardroom ready to go, and the select board was talking last week or last night about having their first meeting in person. So that's coming. Be ready. I think we'll be low on the totem pole to get any time in there, but all the committees are starting to move to in-person meetings. So If we need to adjust, if anyone needs to adjust the times on our meeting, we should probably start talking about that sooner rather than later.
Okay. Yeah, it might be something I need to think about. If that's all right with people pushing it back about a half hour.
Yeah, we can definitely, we get some time, so, but start thinking through that, what that process might mean for everyone, so.
I appreciate it.
And okay, so if there's nothing else, is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, roll call vote. Chris,
Aye.
Rachel,
I
Kate,
Aye.
and I'm an aye. Thank you, everyone. Have a good